I am in the historical center of Munich, Germany, just a little ways from the Marienplatz, and I am going to check out a unique and under-the-radar institution, the German Hunting and Fishing Museum. This museum about Germany's prominent history of hunting and fishing, which was technically established by Hermann Goering, currently has a special display on German cryptids like the Wolpertinger and the Tatzelwurm, which I am really excited to see. Out front there is a bronze wild boar sculpture. There's also a bronze catfish beckoning visitors to the fishing museum. The Hunting and Fishing Museum is housed inside the old Augustinian Church of Munich, which was constructed in the 13th century as part of an Augustinian monastery, but was deconsecrated in 1803. Alright, let's go see what wonders await inside. The interior of this former Augustinian church is magnificent. It provides a rather distinctive setting for a taxidermy and hunting museum. As far as I know, this is the only former place of worship in the world that serves as a taxidermy museum. Honestly, this could be mistaken for some sort of pagan chapel. The nave of this church is packed with antler mounts and other antique hunting equipment. This is the skeleton of an Irish elk, also known as the giant deer from the Ice Age. It was the largest deer species that ever lived. Its antlers are about 3.5 meters across. That is truly impressive. This former Augustinian church building was damaged by the World War II bombings, and it was converted into the German Hunting and Fishing Museum in the mid-1960s after being reconstructed. However, the museum's story goes back a bit farther than that. Here in Bavaria, hunting culture was quite prominent by the turn of the 20th century, and there were a number of local hunters who were planning for some sort of hunting museum here in Munich. It would finally come to fruition in the 1930s thanks to one Hermann Goering, who was quite the avid hunter himself. That's right! This museum was effectively established by the commander of the Luftwaffe with the blessing of Hitler and his Nazi party, who desired to play up the cultural heritage and virtues of hunting here in Germany. While they intended to open this Imperial Hunting Museum in Berlin, it was instead opened inside a wing of Nymphenburg Palace here in Munich in 1938, with the agreement that the museum would be moved to Berlin after they won their upcoming war. Thankfully, they did not end up winning that war, and the collection fell into obscurity until the mid-1960s, when this beautiful church was restored and it opened up in here in 1966. Many of the artifacts here, including the colossal number of antlers lining the walls, were from the collection of Count Arco Zinneberg, who is known as a prolific hunter. That is what the Count's trophy room looked like. I wish that was still intact. The Nazi government purchased his collection in the late 1930s and it became the basis of their museum. So despite the fact that this place was established by a war criminal, which I did not see any mention of here, the museum has lots of interesting taxidermy and artifacts. It is a great place to learn about local hunting and fishing heritage, as well as its impact on the environment. Here is a cave bear skeleton. They went extinct about 12,000 years ago. There are lots of beautiful decorated hunting rifles and other guns from the 17th and 18th centuries. That wooden trailside monument commemorated the spot where Kaiser Ludwig III shot his last deer in 1918. He was the last king of Bavaria as his throne was abolished in the post-war revolution. Here is a massive and magnificent 18th century sleigh. Crossbows were common hunting weapons, and they first became highly popular in Europe around the 11th century. Crossbow hunting is strictly not permitted in Germany anymore. That is a fantastic crossbow made in 1650. Here are some examples of deformed antlers. These are the results of rare genetic deformities or injuries to the testicles. This poor buck is a 7-pointer. One side of his antler has 4 points while another has 3. That is a painting of a boar being shot by Count Ludwig VIII in 1742. This is a silver-plated powder flask from the 18th century with a carved depiction of boars, cows, and wolves being chased by hounds. Here is some antique falconry equipment. There's a ferret in a 19th century ferret container. I guess when you shot a ferret, you'd shove them in there. This Neanderthal wood carving was created by a sculptor in Oberammergau, Bavaria, a town known for its wood carving and passion play. This hunting sword was given as a gift by Mad King Ludwig II. That is the hunting jewelry of Kaiserin Augusta Victoria, the wife of Kaiser Wilhelm II, so she was the last German Empress and Queen of Prussia. Here are some pieces composed of carved ivory, and there's a powder flask in the shape of a lobster claw. That's an ivory powder flask from the 17th century depicting the legend of St. Hubert. Here are some terrifying spiked dog collars worn by mutts centuries ago. On the right there's a giant brass dog collar. That could not have been comfortable. Besides the Museum of the Hunt and Nature in Paris, I have never seen anything quite like this place. But there is lots more to see here at the Deutsche Jagd und Fischerei Museum. Now let's move on to the special display about German cryptids, which is primarily based on the Tatzelwurm. The Tatzelwurm is a legendary and dangerous creature that once lived and perhaps still lives in the Alps. It is a cat-headed monstrosity with a thick snake-like body. This one looks like a mix between a lion and a dragon. It has 2 big cat paws to pounce on its prey from the sky. It is also known to have piercing breath and a deadly gaze. This is the first ever fossilized evidence for the Tatzelwurm ever found. It was supposedly discovered in 2019 by a sculptor, which is a bit convenient, at the Upper Seedlame Reservoir in Bavaria. Before then, there was no tangible evidence confirming the Tatzelwurm's existence. So who knows? These may be the remains of the mythical beast. These are early 1900s postcards from the Tatzelwurm Inn, which still exists as a popular Bavarian resort in Oberaudorf, where there is also a Tatzelwurm Falls. These postcards are so cool. There have been reported sightings of the Tatzelwurm for centuries in the Alps, spanning from Bavaria to Styria. This is a reproduction of a real wayside shrine memorializing the 1779 death of farmer Hans Fuchs, showing that he was in fact killed by a Tatzelwurm. The Tatzelwurm made frequent appearances in Bavarian folk art and songs around that time period. This is a 16th century engraving depicting the Tatzelwurm, among a hunt scene of other mythical creatures like a unicorn and a griffin. In 1952, the famous Hanekom downhill ski race in Austria did not take place, and there was a rumor that it was cancelled after a Tatzelwurm attacked a skier during training. It is assumed that a Tatzelwurm will not shy away from human proximity while on the hunt, so this giant long pike was constructed in order to kill a Tatzelwurm if need be. This protective leather face mask was also created to be worn in the event of a Tatzelwurm encounter because of their repugnant bad breath and killer stare. This net was designed to capture a live Tatzelwurm, though based on the descriptions I've heard that probably would not hold it. The exhibit advises that hikers in the Alps should be quiet and considerate while hiking in order to protect themselves from a deadly Tatzelwurm encounter. By the way, much of the art in this exhibit was done by Jennifer Franzke. Here is the supposed blood-stained hat and rope of South Tyrolean alpinist and film producer Louis Trenker, who I suppose in an alternate timeline became a victim of the Tatzelwurm. In reality, a Tatzelwurm did not eat Trenker, he lived to the ripe old age of 97. And here a Tatzelwurm lies satisfied on a mountain after eating Louis Trenker. Here are some Wolpertingers. These are creatures similar to the American jackalope, which I am personally a big fan of. However, Wolpertingers can be a bit more sinister and some can fly. There are different variations in the features of Wolpertingers. Generally, they will at least have the head and body of a rabbit with the antlers of a deer, as is the case with this one, but others have the wings of a pheasant. Definitely an odd mixture of animal parts. Despite their fangs, they are not hostile to humans, but if their saliva gets on human skin, then thick hair patches will grow on the spots. According to folklore, they can also spray like a skunk in self-defense. Wolpertingers primarily live in the forests of Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg. But in all seriousness, the Wolpertingers were created by mischievous Bavarian taxidermists in the 1800s by stitching the different parts of animals together and claiming they're real. They became staples of Bavarian tourist establishments as an example of fantastical local wildlife, much like the jackalope is used in the American West. In fact, I wonder if the Wolpertinger was an inspiration for the jackalope. These Wolpertingers are incredibly amusing, and I like to believe that they're really out there. And if so, I hope they look this goofy. There are some interesting miniature scenes. In this one, Augustus II the Strong, an elector from Saxony, is getting ready for a hunt in front of Moritzburg Castle around the year 1700. This 1880 scene shows a dead poacher in the mountains. There is some more taxidermy under the grand staircase. There's a rabbit with some gray partridges. And here are some more European hares, which are some of the largest rabbits in the world. Here are some more vintage miniature hunting scenes. This is a replica of a sculpture that's in the Hofgarten of the Munich residence. It was incorrectly identified as Diana in the Third Reich's version of this museum. This box diorama contains some golden eagles, which live in the high mountains of Bavaria. That is the tusk of an extinct woolly mammoth. These could grow up to 4 meters or 13 feet. This back room contains some random taxidermy pieces. There's a taxidermy dog. There are some full-size taxidermy dioramas in here. I'm gonna climb into this small tunnel intended for small children and see what's inside. Okay, there's a stuffed animal fox and a real stuffed fox. Here is a replica Bavarian hunting cabin. Looks like there's a hare in here, though it would be cooler if it was a Wolpertinger. Roe deer are extremely common all across Germany. In fact, there have been overpopulation problems since they have not really had a natural predator to keep them in check here for over 100 years now. There are wildcats in Germany. Currently, it's believed that about 5,000 to 7,000 exist. Here is a whole wild boar family. These are infamous residents of the mountainous areas of southern Bavaria. Many of the boars around here are radioactive because they have dug up truffles out of radioactive soil from nuclear weapon testing in the 1960s. Now we enter the fishing exhibit, which has a newer display about fish habitats in the rivers and lakes of Deutschland. This more immersive and modern exhibit design definitely feels out of place here. There are lots of taxidermied fish under the floor. By the way, in German fashion, a license is of course required to fish anywhere in the nation. There's a simulated shipwreck in here. That's neat. There is a more old school fishing display. This section is packed with thousands of antique fishing lures, hooks, and taxidermied fish, of course. This is a marmor carp fin, a giant carp that weighed 96 pounds. There's a hysterical fish head mount from around 1900. The fish skin was peeled off and pulled over a wooden body for that display. And that's what the inside of a fish looks like. Here are plenty of examples of fish leather. Here in Bavaria, where there are many wonderful lakes that make for popular fishing destinations, several types of carp exist, as well as falchion fish which live in the Boden Sea, also known as Lake Constance. I really like the historic box displays for the fish. This is definitely the most extensive historical fishing display I have ever seen. It does not seem that this section has changed a whole lot since the 1960s. So the German Hunting and Fishing Museum is awesome! I really enjoyed the old-fashioned nature of this museum. The Wolpertingers were definitely a highlight, as well as the Tatzelwurm display, especially since I was not previously familiar with the menacing cryptid. Most visitors to Munich just walk right on by this fascinating museum, so definitely consider stopping in here on a visit to the Bavarian capital. If you enjoyed this video, then please make sure to click the like button, share it, and subscribe to my channel. I have videos featuring similar taxidermy museums as well as all sorts of unique places, historic locations, natural wonders, and more here in Germany, as well as across Europe and the United States. Additionally, if you're interested in cryptids, then I have made videos about several in America, like the jackalope and the mothman. Thanks for watching!